Excited to be here. A lot to talk about today. We're going to talk about Week 12 standout performers, talk about underrated tape, preview some big playoff games this upcoming week, and we'll talk about some college football. I think Craig got me in the picks this week, so we'll talk about that as well. Some major matchups, and then we'll get into some NFL and our biggest takeaways. But Craig, how you feeling today?
Feeling good. It was my best college football week of the season, actually.
Yeah, it was. You did pretty good. You did pretty good.
Yeah, we'll get to that in the second segment.
Yes, so that'll be fun. But yeah, let's go ahead and start. Just some of the biggest results. I'll start with you, Craig. Just what did you see from this past week that really impressed you, as far as just results wise? Teams coming up big, some winning region titles, others with tiebreakers. You was at the game on Friday night. Just what was your biggest results from Week 12?
Biggest results for me, I liked the way Grayson handled Parkview. They went to the ground, they played physical, ran all over them. I think it was like 340 yards on the ground. Dylan Elder, I mentioned that I thought he hurt his wrist in the Archer game. That obviously isn't true, so it's good to see him back. Had a ton of different guys just getting it done on the ground. I like that. I really like Grayson in the playoffs. And then I was honestly very impressed with North Gwinnett. Their firepower. Ryan Hall played outstanding. I think he is a quarterback that in the playoffs, he has a lot of games under his belt. He's only a junior. He's athletic. And they showed good balance offensively as well. And then I thought their defense tackled well, got after the passer, had a ton of tackles for loss, like I think 15 TFLs. And so they looked great. I think that region impressed me. You talk about Norcross, Peachtree Ridge also. So I think those Gwinnett teams, they definitely showed out this week.
Yeah, 100%. I gotta agree with you on that. One of my biggest results was also Grayson clinching the Region 4 7A title with their 41-14 win. Big takeaway, as you mentioned, Dylan Elder with his big game, and also Mark Austin ran for over 300 plus yards against a really good Parkview front. So I think that was big, obviously. That was one of my results. My other one has to be North Atlanta, just clicking and firing on all cylinders. A nice 42-7 dominant win. I was at the game, called it from the booth. And what just stood out to me was just their athleticism, right? They were really just flying around to the ball. It was causing havoc. Their defensive line in front is really good. It's hard to run against them. Chase Lennon was in there deflecting throws and causing pressure, speeding up the quarterback Matt Perch a little bit. And then Zayden Benton, man, crazy stat about him. He has 4 pick sixes on the season. So he's getting it done. So North Atlanta's big win against them. They won't win a region. They will be hosting Houston County this week. But I think that was one of my biggest standouts. Just them winning that game at home and just was up. I think it was like 42-0 at half. I mean, they just flat out dominated in all phases of the game, right? Punt returning, special teams, running the ball, just every phase of the game you could think of, they dominated.
Yeah, and their only loss was to Marist. It was a Thursday game. You look at last year, Marist destroyed them. This year was really close. I think in that game, maybe just the pace of the game. I mean, finishing 9-1, that's not bad at all. They had one bad game all season. They secure home field. We'll talk about their matchup next, but I really like that team. And as you said, all three phases, that's been the key to their success all season long. They can run the ball well. Ian Reynolds, he's big, he's athletic. They've got a great offensive line and a ton of speed. So they certainly impressed. I think another team, just in terms of results, that really the win's going to go a long way for them is LaGrange beating Troop. They beat them for the second straight year. And the thing about LaGrange last year, this is a program that won like 2 games in several seasons before Matt Napier got there. They got back on track. Last year had a great season, get the big emotional win over Troop, and then they had to play Burke County in the first round, came out flat and lost. And so this Troop game was a really good sign for them. They lost some games early. Now they're peaking. And so that was the entire conversation this year. Yeah, we beat Troop last year, but then we didn't come out. So now they're trying to really catapult it. The defense holding Troop to 7 points, that's a big time result in a game that they needed to win to get home field. So certainly a big rivalry game as well.
100%, Craig. And then for me, my last one was just Coffee. Big win against Ware County, the defending state champions, 28-5. Pretty much dominated that game. Fred Brown has been magnificent all year, 1,434 yards and 16 touchdowns this season. So I got to give a shout out to Coffee. They look like they're going to be one of the favorites out there in 5A. They're having a great season. And as we mentioned, we're going to talk about playoff games in a second, but they're on the other end of that bracket when it comes to the Creekside and the Warner Robins. So they are in that bracket along with Kale. So that'll be really, really interesting.
Yep, and then one other result that was surprising was Dublin beating Swainsboro. Swainsboro lost by a point to Bleckley County the week before, and that's a great team in Class A Division One that made it to the finals. They got a ton of talent, and so Dublin really gave it to them, 41-20 win. That's significant for them. So it looks like that classification's wide open. Obviously, Prince Ave will be the team to beat, but that's big time. And then Bainbridge played Cairo in the season finale for the region title, and they absolutely destroyed them. I didn't expect that. Cairo had won 8 straight heading into that game, and Bainbridge just took it to them. Mentioned yesterday, their only loss is to Thomas County Central early on. They look like a definitely Final Four state championship contender.
100%. Great point out by you, Craig. Those are our biggest results from the week. We're going to keep it moving to our next topics. Just playoff games we're looking forward to. This is probably the section I'm most excited about this week. Obviously, we got our standout performers too, but I'm just excited to preview some of these great matchups. And why not start, Craig, with a game we've been talking about off air the whole week? Colquitt versus Parkview. It's actually on Max Preps, and it has it as their game of the week. That's a heck of a matchup to start the first round. And Colquitt's offense has been balling all year long. Again, tough cover. We talked about the weapons last week with Grayson and seeing if Parkview can slow him down. You can make the argument. I think even so, Colquitt has better weapons, right? 4-star Miami commit, Nikar, Florida State commit, Landon Thomas. He also got another receiver that's really explosive and good. Nico Fan, the Middle Tennessee commit, who can throw the ball and run it with some of the best of them. This is a tough matchup for Parkview.
Oh, it's a brutal matchup. Anyone that has to go to Colquitt the first round.
Yeah.
Colquitt has been so dominant this season. I call them the Kings of South Georgia. You look at their region just week after week, all those non-region games, once it gets to it, they just outclass Lowndes, Valdosta, Camden, Richmond Hill. And then you have Parkview, arguably coming out of the most talented region in the state. They call it the SEC. So they're battle-tested, but Colquitt's just been so all these big playmakers you talked about and weapons offensively, they were there last year. They made a big run, ended up losing to Carrollton, right?
Yep, Carrollton, semifinals.
And yeah, that's just a brutal matchup. And Parkview, they have great athletes, but you look at what Grayson did last week, just ran all over them, got them off their game plan. Colquitt's so well coached. I'd be very surprised if Parkview's able to come out and keep this one close.
Yeah, I think for me, you brought up a great point. I think roster-wise, coming into the season, this is a state championship type of roster. I think in some places they've gotten injuries, right? No, Kyrie Spain, who was a 2,000-yard rusher, led the league. I think it was top 5 last year rushing-wise. You had Traylon Maddox, who's injured as well. Them two were out. You were hoping, big things from quarterback, who's had some good games, but again, have to see how he plays this one. But and then though, you got Mike Matthews, Jalen Crawford, Zealous Hicks. You come in this season thinking, okay, hey, as long as we got the quarterback and he can play to a good, decent level. I'm not saying he hasn't, but you felt pretty good about your chances. But now, as you mentioned, the SEC basically in that region, the Archers, the Newtons, the Graysons, the Brookwoods, the South Gwinnett's, it's tough, man. And like I said, it's a tough spot to be in on the road. And I think it's going to be tough for them as well, man. We'll see what they're able to muster up. Obviously, going to be depending on David Rouse a little bit, running the ball as a junior. They're getting some good playing time, which is going to bode well for them next year, but they will not have the same talent. We'll not have Jalen Crawford next year. We'll not have Mike Matthews. We'll have Zealous Hicks coming back, but we'll see. But if my money had to put money on it, I would go with Colquitt.
Yeah, and then you talked about their backfield. Colin Houck was there last year. Yep. They're a good passing offense, one of the best in the state, but they have Kyrie Spain back there. Well, now you have Traylon Maddox to start the season. You have 2 running backs that are all state. You lose both of them. And so really the strength of what that team could have been, we saw them go toe-to-toe with Mill Creek earlier in the year, but lately they're too one-dimensional offensively, and they aren't going to be able to just control the ball and drive against a team like Colquitt. They're just too prepared, too well-coached, too bought in, and they have one goal this season. Everyone knows it, state title.
100%. So that's our take on that one, y'all. Y'all let us know in the comments below. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe on YouTube. Let us know who you taking in that game, Colquitt or Parkview. That's our take. Then we got a big one on TV. Let's talk about that one, Craig. Cass and Kel. Fortunately, I will not be at this one. Craig will be there, though. I think it's a great matchup. playoff week one to kind of schedule and to put on TV between two great opponents. Obviously, I'll let you start this one, Craig, and I'll give my take. But what's your thoughts on the matchup?
So before the season started, I was really high on Cass, and then I thought they could challenge Rome in that game. They ended up getting shut out, struggled on third down. Their offensive line got exposed, looked really rusty. Well, then we go into that Cartersville game, and I'm like, Cartersville should win this one. Cass, they're really good, but I mean, Cartersville's had their number. You watch that game, Cass outplayed them the entire time, just couldn't kick the game winner, left a few points on the board. There were some questionable calls on a Sokovie White touchdown that got called back for, I don't even know what, I think it was offsetting penalties, made no sense. And then you have the injury to Devin Henderson. So it's like, okay, well, it's gonna count Cass out, despite them playing better than I expected. And then you have the big win over Calhoun. You got Devin Henderson back, and the way Brody McCorder's playing, I'm telling you, they are a dangerous number 4 seed. And I think going into this matchup, there is no way Kell is going to be overlooking this team at all. They can't do it. And then add the other factor in there. Coach Gates used to be at Kell, used to be at North Cobb. He's familiar with that program. So I think it's a really intriguing matchup. But the key for Kell is you cannot underestimate this team. Both offenses are going to be really versatile, incredible receivers on both sidelines, good quarterbacks. I think it's a good matchup. But, yeah, just don't underestimate Cass.
Yeah, I think Craig brought up some great points, and I think this could potentially be a shootout. And I think the matchup to watch in this one is going to be the wide receivers in the of Cass versus the secondary of Kell. And why I say that is because we see GHC, the last game we televised with them, they had some success on the outside. The Xavier Daisies of the world, the Gabe Daniels, right? The Braden Burgesses, they were having some success. So I think that's going to be interesting, right? Sokovie White, man, when he's getting the ball in his hands, he's dangerous in the open field. So is Devin Henderson, who looks to be back. So that's where I got my eye on in this game. That's going to be important. I think if Kell can run the ball, play a little bit of clock management, and then use the play action, get Kyle involved. We've seen the versatility in the last game, him being used in the slot, running back, X, Y, Z, wherever you want to put him on the field, you can use him. And then you can't forget about Peyton Zachary, who had a big time game in a recent one, 8 catches, 118 yards, and 3 touchdowns. So all those things is going to be important. I think if you're Kell, you want to keep that offense off the field. You want to be able to run the ball a little bit, do some play action, and hit your weapons in the open space. You got plenty of them, and you got 3-headed monster in the backfield, as we mentioned before, and Quintarius Gibson, Tyreek Green, and also Kamari Nix. So I got to lean on that a little bit. But the X factor I got in this game is the one you mentioned, Brody McWhorter. And we talked so much on the car ride back home in that game. And we said, with Henderson going out, why did they not put the ball in Brody's hands and let him go win the game? He still has Sokovie White on that field, and we seen the progression from him week 1 against Rome going all the way into that game. And we were both impressed on the sideline. We were talking about it the whole game, Craig, about just how comfortable he looked, how he knew where his reads were, how he was dissecting the coverage, how he was hitting his receivers in stride. So I think it's going to be a great test. I won't be able to see it, unfortunately, but Craig, I know, is going to have a great take when he comes back. I want to see how he looks in this game. How comfortable will he be? Can he light up that Kell secondary? That's going to be such a good test. That's my X factor in this game, Brody McWhorter.
Yep, I think another factor to watch for, Cass is not afraid to go for it on 4th down at all. They're going to give it to Devin Henderson. They're going to line up, rush to the line of scrimmage. It's going to be 4-down territory. They won't flinch in that regard. And then I think it could end up being a shootout. I do like Kell's defense a lot, but mentioned the GAC game, some of the plays they were able to make in the passing game. Sokovie White is going to catch the football. He's too quick. He can get open. Should be a great game. And then it's just the versatility of both offenses. Kell, what they're able to do with Peyton Zachary in the intermediate routes, his explosive ability, the success in the red zone, Bryce's athleticism, Kyle Vaca, Kamari Nix, that backfield that just gets better and better. What's the freshman's name again for Kell?
Quintarius Gibson?
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, they've got so many offensive weapons. I think Kell's got one of the best offenses in the state right now. But, I mean, Cass, they came out really hot early against Cartersville, came out hot against Calhoun. They're going to come out experienced, ready to go. So, I mean, the first half's going to be huge, and we've seen them string together some long drives too, in large part to their confidence and ability to go for it on 4th down.
My last note For Cash, you better guard Kyle Vaca. We seen in the Cartersville game. I'm so serious. You better do it. If you overlook him and you pay too much attention to Peyton Zachary and other receivers, he will light you up. We seen it, and I bring up this point. Dereon Taylor in that game in Cartersville. He had 2 touchdowns in that game. He lit them up from the slot. So you play around, you don't guard him, you're going to find out. So you better guard Kyle Vaca in the slot. If you sleep on him, oh, well, he's not going to do anything. You're going to find out Friday night. That is another thing I want to point out too. Better guard number 7, Kyle Vaca. If not, in that slot, he will light you up.
That's right. In that game, really Cass's defense shut him down the whole time. The only big plays by Cartersville were just wide open deep balls. And I think with Cass, they're going to be able to throw it deep. It's just about sustaining drives and trying to keep the ball out of Kel's hands. I think they'll have a game plan. Should be a really exciting playoff atmosphere. And when you're in these situations, Cass came out of a region where they had to fight in the last game just to make it. So they've had their backs against the wall.
100%. And then we're going to leave that one there. We're going to go to the next matchup. We got North Atlanta, Houston County. I was so glad to be able to text and talk to Coach Doe and just send him that this game is televised on GBB. I'm pretty sure he already knew, but I'm just excited because it allows North Atlanta to highlight the program. And you don't really see a lot of their games on TV, right? Obviously, they play in the Corky Kell, which is great, but that's it. You don't really see a lot of their games else televised. And this is a great program. And I want to give some love to Coach All on what he's doing. Their 3rd consecutive winning season, their 2nd straight season winning over 8 games. Made history last year, doing it again this year, 9 wins. Like you said, nothing to sneeze at. They're doing a phenomenal job. And I talked about what stood out to me in that game. They played Dunwoody, and they're going to need in this game. And the key standouts for me is kind of the same thing. I want to see the secondary matchup again. I don't want to keep making that point, but I just think we've seen Houston County in person, right, Craig? We've seen Kel Woodburn. We've seen Ricky Johnson, and we've seen the success they had on the outside against that secondary of Lee County, right? But I think that North Atlanta has the dudes to match up with that, right? Zayden Benson, as I mentioned, 4 pick sixes on the year. Salim Davis is kind of turning into a lockdown corner that transferred over from Westlake. He's been having a strong season since he's transferred over. Coach raved about him. I want to see who wins that matchup. That's interesting. And the last note, and I'll throw it to you, Craig, before I finish my point. Chase Linton is my X factor. And why I bring up Chase Linton, same thing we seen earlier this year, Craig. When Houston County was rolling offensively, but what changed? That defensive front. Leroy Jackson went off towards the end of the game. 3 straight possessions, he had 3 straight sacks. That completely negated and changed the game. He started creating pressures. They started getting to Antoine Hill. Chase Linton has that same kind of pop on that defensive end. And Coach raved about it. He says he thinks he's going to get SEC and AC offers rolling in this spring, and I agree with him. The way he gets in the backfield is something phenomenal. We've seen him win Defensive Player of the Game in our Corky Kell in the first game of the season. That kid is next level. He knows he has a bunch of different moves he can put in the repertoire against different offensive linemen. If you don't block him, it's going to be a problem. We've seen their offensive line struggle towards the end of the game. So that's my X factor in that one. Watch Chase Linton. That would be an interesting point. Wouldn't be surprised if he wins that Georgia Commish Player of the Game, but he is a factor to watch for as well.
Yep. North Atlanta's defense has been really good this year. And with Houston, they struggled to throw it deep against Lee County, but they killed it in the screen game. So if North Atlanta is able to read those out, get off the blocks, and limit the yards, force them into 3rd down, that's going to be the key. And then just don't let them open up that deep ball. And I think if they do that and tackle well, I think they can come away with a big victory. This is just their 2nd ever home playoff game. Last year was the first time they ever hosted one. So it's a program on the rise. Great seniors, great speed, and certainly a heck of a first-round matchup in 6A.
And guess what, Craig? Their first ever game hosting the first round. Never happened in school history.
Yep. The only reason they did last year, I think, is there was an upset.
Yes.
Like a number 4 seed.
Yep, and they came up. That's the only reason. Yep, 100%. Great point by Craig. And my last note on this one before we go to Craig's next game he wants to look at, look out for the offense for North Atlanta, right? They can run the ball very well. We've seen that Houston County can be susceptible to kind of big plays. Darius Malcolm, Demetrius Barnes, they use them as a 1-2 kind of punch, 1-2 kind of headed monster. They can spell each other well. They both run the ball. That offensive line has been great all year for North Atlanta, opening up holes. That'll be interesting. And just when you sleep and you put that extra safety in the box, Ian Reynolds can light you up with those playmakers on the outside, as I mentioned. Zayden Benson, Grant Thompson, and Dallas Ford. So he did it against Dunwoody. That's going to be interesting to know as well. If they can get the running game going early and often for North Atlanta, they'll feel pretty good with the play action going deep. And Ian Reynolds has taken a big step forward. Love his maturation and his growth. He has been excellent all year long. He's going to be a key factor offensively as well.
Certainly. All right, I'm going to go to 4A real quick. There's some very intriguing first round matchups. So you got Wayne County against Spalding. Wayne County is a great team out of Region 3. They battled with Benedictine, Burke County, New Hampstead, and then Spalding's been undefeated this year. Should be a good test for them if they can keep that momentum going. Another one is going to be Holy Innocents against Cedartown, two teams that pride themselves on running the ball. Two teams that made deep runs last year, obviously matching up in the first round should be a good one. You got, in 5A, Harris County against Ola. Ola's trying to win their first ever playoff game. And what's interesting about Ola, they've been in every game this year, even the ones they lose to Warner Robins or Dutchtown. It's like a 3-point loss or an overtime loss to Warner Robins. So I think they've had the talent to win these games, but no one has really stepped up. And now that it's in the playoffs, that senior class, they know that the season could be coming to an end. Someone's going to step up, and I think we'll finally see the potential of this Ola team. Their head coach, he comes over from Pelham in Alabama. He's won state titles before. They've had a dramatic leap forward, but I think a playoff win against Harris County would really go a long way for them.
Two players to watch real quick for Craig goes to the next one. Najeh Newkirk, who's been a phenomenal freshman for them, has been starting and playing, and Carson Way, the sophomore. They're a team that likes to run the ball, struggle a little bit passing it, but watch the run game. And now, and as he mentioned, they have been close, knocking on the door. Just got to get that in the game execution.
For sure. And then, when it's the playoffs and the season, you're talking about seniors not getting a chance to play again, they are going to have that extra sense of urgency, and I think that could be big time. All right. In 3A, some top ones. Carver, Atlanta against Stevens County. Really interesting battle right there. And then another one with that Region 5. Sandy Creek's going to be playing Monroe area, the team that upset Prince Avenue this year. They can run the ball really well. It's a historic program, and very tough matchup for Sandy Creek in the first round.
Yeah, for sure. Sandy Creek's going to have to just be able to run the football with Amari Latimer. Kind of lean on that and then use that to obviously set up their play action. And then I think Evan Harvey is the one to watch in that one, being able to get after the quarterback for them. But yeah, like you said, you can't sleep on Monroe area. They went toe-to-toe and beat one of the top teams in Class A Division I.
Yep. Yeah, so big time. And they love to run the ball. They rushed for like 500 in that game. And then Sandy Creek with Lattimore in their rushing attack. Lots of yards in that game. And certainly 3A will be intriguing. But yeah, that Carver, Atlanta, Stevens County, that's going to be a big test. Carver always shows up in the big game. They don't care who you are. And then how about Jonesboro and Glenn Academy? Might be an underrated matchup.
Yeah.
Glenn Academy, one of the few teams to beat Brunswick this year, and then they had 3 defensive touchdowns last week. I think that's going to be a heck of a game.
I agree with Craig. And the crazy part, guys, we didn't even mention 7A. And just those intriguing matchups. But Craig brought up a great point. The Jonesboro Glenn Academy. Jonesboro's had a great season. Their players blowing up. Jamar Owens, Jatavius Wyman. Just those players blowing up, having a good season. Montez Redding, who also plays basketball, just having phenomenal years. So that's a big game for them. Can they kind of same thing kind of with, North Atlanta. We're seeing the program on the rise. They not nothing to play with. We're seeing the same thing with Jonesboro. Can they kind of have that big signature win and just kind of establish that culture of what they really want to do? So I think that's really, really intriguing. My quick note on 7A, and me and Craig talked about it off air. I think the most interesting thing is I look at the bracket and I look at the Norcross and Grayson bracket. Guys, imagine Buford's playing Willard first round, right? That should be a win for them. Norcross Buford second round matchup, and then the first potential ever. Obviously, Grayson has to handle their business. I'm confident that they will. I think they'll beat Richmond Hill. I think they'll beat the winner out of East Coward and North Paulding. Imagine a quarterfinals matchup between Grayson and Buford, first ever matchup between those two teams. Guys, sign me up. Get the popcorn ready. That's a matchup I'm looking forward to seeing between those two teams. That would be so much fun watching them play.
Jimmy, thanks for that. You're right. It was Mary Persons that got that. So I'm going to have to reevaluate that for tomorrow. Thank you.
Appreciate that, Jimmy.
Hey, they're both in 3A. But no, that's a good note. And then
we talked about 6A. We got to bring up 6A real quick before we go to our standout performers and conclude this segment. I'm trying to give me 1 sec, guys. I'm trying to load 6A. All right, hold on 1 sec. Okay, here goes 6A. So I think 6A is interesting as well. Me and Craig talked about this off air. I think potentially a Douglas County, potentially between Douglas County and Gainesville in the semifinals. That's a potential matchup. Obviously, they got to handle their business against Habersham Central and the winner of Alpharetta Sequoia and the rest of that region. But you got to like where you're at there. So that's one that stands out. And then potentially Woodward Academy in Gainesville in the quarterfinals matchup. Woodward Academy has so many athletes: Andrew Hines, London Merritt, really good linebacker for them. Offensively, Josiah Abdullah, Ben Grice, Lucas Farrington. They got a lot of athletes. That would be a really intriguing semifinal matchup as well. Can't forget about North Atlanta too down there. They will probably play Woodward Academy round 2. So that's a lot of intriguing matchups there. And then in the other bracket, also what stands out to us, Thomas County Central, right? They're the number 1 seed, and then Hughes. A lot of people forgot about Hughes, but I'm not. They're a tough team. That's really a gauntlet of a region. Listen to these matchup guys real quick. North Forsyth Hughes, Sprayberry Rome, Jonesboro, the Glen Academy, St. Pius, Thomas County Central. You potentially have Hughes playing Rome in the second round to see who goes to the quarters. That would potentially play Thomas County Central. Any one of those matchups, even if we don't do the on TV, we don't do that second round matchup, that Thomas County Central versus Rome or Hughes, come on, man, sign me up for that. So I think it's really intriguing.
Yeah, and whoever comes out of that quadrant, I think, has a very good chance of making state. And then in that top right, I think Roswell probably has the most favorable run. They've looked outstanding. They've got all the pieces. They've got big-time playmakers.
Senior
Saquon
leadership.
Smith is balling out. KJ Smith defensively. I like Roswell. I think they have a favorable one, but those other ones, I mean, I think at this point, I think you're going to see Douglas County, Gainesville, and then Roswell against probably Hughes.
Wow, so you think Hughes would be Thomas County Central?
I think they could.
Interesting. Okay. I mean, sign me up, man. 6A, 7A, they're both going to be intriguing, as we pointed out. But, we're going to find out. Craig brought up some great points, but we're going to keep it rolling, guys, and move to our standout performance. We know this is the part you guys want to see. So I'm going to start it off and then throw it to Craig, man. I got to give some love to Roswell. We just talked about him potentially having a pretty favorable, obviously, run this season. We'll see how they come out, but really good offense, really good defense. But Najeh Davenport, right, their last game, 13 carries, 241 yards, and 2 touchdowns against Alpharetta. Really good group, a rival as well. Handled their business, run it 52-13. And that's what makes Roswell so dangerous, right? They can run it with Najeh Davenport and Saquon Smith, and they can also pass and get the ball to Dylan Williams as well, and Saquon Smith, who can play slot as well. So really versatile offense and a really great team. So that my standout performer, Najeh Davenport, with 241 yards rushing and 2 tutties.
Yep, and KJ Smith is a very underrated quarterback with his legs and ability to escape. He can make some spectacular plays. And my first standout, Ryan Hall, junior quarterback of North Gwinnett, just had a really special performance. 3 rushing touchdowns, 2 through the air, 202 passing yards, 72 rushing, was outstanding in the red zone, hit all his guys, and just really balanced that North Gwinnett offense that I knew could pass the ball well, but he really brought that element where he was dangerous from the start, running the ball, played phenomenal.
100%. Next one for me, Bainbridge quarterback. We don't talk about them a lot. Got to get some love down there. Cam Sanders, 17 for 21, 295 yards, 5 passing touchdowns, also rushed for 63 yards and a touchdown for Bainbridge. The program has been doing an outstanding job. Got to give him some love. Big time performance for him. Cam Sanders, you get my standout performer for that performance. 295 yards again, 5 tutties, 63 yards rushing, and a touchdown.
All right, I'm going to go to the defensive side. Lota Agokwe from Walton, I mentioned against North Cobb. He had, I think, 3 sacks. He had a ton of sacks in that. Trying to think the game they played after that, maybe the Osborne game. He had 2 sacks again against Wheeler, over double digits. And I think with Walton, if they're going to win state this year, I love their offense, but this is arguably the best defense they've had in terms of just talent and the secondary. That's usually a position that Walton, they have good guys, but there's not that depth there. This year they have a good secondary, and then the leadership on the defensive line, Wendell Gregory, Ashton Woods, Adokwe. You got linebackers like Jake Trainer Jake Thorner. He had a monster game, 17 tackles last week. That Walton defense is for real.
It is. It's been a reason why they're 10-0, won their region title. They've already hit 2 of their goals so far. Last one is to win state, so we'll find out. But yeah, I agree with you. If in order for them to win state, obviously the offense has to be great, but like you mentioned, the defense has to be up to the level and up to par, and they have been all season long. So that's a story note to watch as well. All right, next for me, gotta go Grayson, man. Grayson running back Dylan Elder. Had a big time performance on TV. He didn't win the player of the game, but I still thought he balled out and played well. He follows it up with another big time performance, 18 carries, 183 yards, and 2 touchdowns. That's getting it done against a pretty good defensive front for Parkview. He got it done. He was physical. Some of those runs he was finishing was next level, man. So got to give him some love. Dylan Eller, the senior running back from Grayson, getting it done for the Rams and leading them to a region championship.
He is very physical. And then if you watch the Archer game we had, there's a lot of plays where he's breaking tackles. And once he gets to the sideline, he's able to outpace them, beat the angles, and take it the distance. So he is certainly a huge part of Grayson and a team that I think is going to make serious noise in the playoffs. I don't want to see them again if you're a Walton fan. Because they're coming for it.
They're coming.
And then just to see them lose their region opener, then come out with the region title. And they've had an interesting season, just getting humbled the first week. The disappointment, teams can either fold or use it to piss them off. And clearly that's what Grayson has done. And they are playing, they're putting in the work in practice. You look at that defense too, Tyler Atkinson. Let's just give him a shout out. Another 14 tackle game last week.
The man's just all over the field, man.
Absolutely.
Every single week.
He's playing a new position this year, went to middle linebacker for the first time. And that's just an even more natural fit. I talked to an Archer coach because the schools are right next to each other. He said he hadn't seen him since like the youth basketball days. He said he didn't even recognize him, just how big and mature he's gotten. He's only a sophomore.
It's crazy.
Yeah, he is legit.
100%. Next for me, I got to go Cook quarterback Drew Folsom. He had 16 for 21, 308 yards, 2 touchdowns, and he had a 35-yard game-winning touchdown score. Drew Folsom for Cook, big-time performance for you. You get my standout for this week.
All right, my next one, I just want to give a shout-out to East Forsyth. They had the lowest percentage out of any team that made the playoffs this year to make it out of the region, just a 0.5% that was featured last week. The next closest one was like 18%, and I think that was Providence Christian. So they came out of the largest region in all of Class 4A. They had to beat North Hall in their season finale, and they did it. This is a 3-year-old school and just a tremendous overall performance. They shook off a tough loss earlier to Cherokee Bluff, and then were able to come out of that region. So standout performer, just the Broncos making it to the playoffs out of that region, and they've played really tough. It's almost like any team that's come out of that region, they played 8 region games, has already kind of played a playoff atmosphere. So big time for the Broncos.
100%. And my last one got to be LaGrange defensive end and tight end, a 3-star player, Parker Shattuck. Just ball out performance, man, in their big win, 23-7 win against Troop. 6 solo tackles, 2 assists, a TFL, a QB pressure, a forced fumble, and one he nearly returned for a pick 6, 87-yard interception return. He got it done. He's the reason why that defense has been so special. Big time performance from Parker Shattuck, gets it done on both sides of the ball. He gets my standout performer from this week.
All right, and I got one more. That is Fellowship Christian's Josh Miholan. He was the reigning state player of the year for soccer. He's an incredible athlete, plays receiver and defensive back. Had 42 yards receiving, 2 touchdowns, 2 solo tackles, and then clinched the game and the region title with an interception in the end zone, 28-21 victory. So just did it all, and a huge part of that successful Fellowship team.
100%. And then before we go to our underrated player, tell the tape, had a good question here from Jimmy. He says, do you guys see any potential region sweeps on any levels?
That is a good question.
Yes.
I think the most likely one to do it. I'm going to go with Region 2 in Class 5A. Jones County, Warner Robins, Dutchtown, and Ola. That would be probably the most likely in my mind.
I have to agree. I mean, that's a really good region, and I think potentially they definitely got a shot. It's kind of tougher for the other ones, as we mentioned earlier, the Parkview one, even though this SEC of the South. I mean, round one playing Colquitt, Archer playing Valdosta. Those are tough matches. So I think I agree with Craig. I mean, that's a really good region. Went all the way down. Warner Robins is hitting their footing now. Jones County is having a great year. Ola has played everybody tough. Two-headed monster in that backfield. But yeah, I will have to agree with that with you, Craig, on there. But all right, we're gonna keep it rolling. We're gonna move to our tell of the tape for a player. Sent this via on the Twitter. He is not from Georgia. He's actually from California. Dereon Rios, Hamilton High in Cali. So let's go ahead and look. He's a slot DB / corner. So we're gonna roll it for you guys real quick and then get to our second segment. One moment. All right, let's share that with you guys and let's blow it up. All right, here we go. So we got a touchdown pass right there out of the slot. Good job right here coming back to the ball. Ooh, nice move inside. Good cut. Another good cut right there. Very, very impressive. Good in the open field. There we go right here. Looks like quarterback's trying to get rid of it. He's looking downfield.
Nice
Boom.
catch.
Good catch right there. Good job locating his quarterback, keeping his feet moving. Okay, nice right here. Nice little curl route to come back. Let's see what he does with the ball in his hands. Good job breaking that. Turning into a nice game, probably about 10 yards. That was hard to see. A good move inside. Here he is. Watch 13. Good cutback route right there. Love that route. Good job making the defender miss. That one was a little hard to see. So there he was on the kick return. Nice yards right there. Good job wrapping up on the tackle side. All right, right here he's going to be playing the outer boundary corner. Does a good job.
Nice.
Tackling the ball loose again, not easy. I'm going to look at that one more time so you guys can see. But here he is right here so you guys can see, number 13. Playing off coverage. Looks and sees the quarterback eyes. Goes to the ball. Should have been caught, but good job jarring the ball loose. Same thing right here. Good job playing coverage, getting his hands up, breaking up the ball. Same thing right here. Playing good zone. Turns his head around. Good break on the ball. Good PBU. But yeah, that's his film. That's Dereon Rios. So what's your quick thoughts on that, Craig, and seeing this film?
Like the way he fights for the extra yards, and then just you can tell in those particular routes they were trying to create a mismatch, but he had the ability to knock the ball out, and that's key.
Yeah, and I think open field is pretty dangerous. Good job with his route running, getting in the side of his quarterback. Defensively, as Craig mentioned, good job just turning his head, not being too handsy. You see a lot of cornerbacks do that when they, can't find the football. It does a good job turning it around and using his hands to draw balls loose. Really great film right there. So appreciate you sending that in. Obviously, we'll have more next week. So definitely appreciate that. We're going to keep it rolling. Jimmy's favorite segment. Second segment, we'll talk some college football. And why not start with the Georgia Bulldogs? Big time win against Missouri. Pretty good team. I think Georgia got tested in that one. And my quick point before I go into detail, but I'm going to throw it to Craig. I just want to say a lot of fans are kind of, I think, antsy just about how Georgia has not blown out teams. So in my eyes, Craig, I see it as a blessing and a curse. A curse because it's like, man, we haven't had that signature win yet. Like, they've beaten good teams, but we haven't had that dominant wire-to-wire victory, that complete kind of game. But at the same time, this Georgia team has played teams and have come from behind, right? Auburn, this game didn't start out well, came from behind against Missouri. So that bodes well because when you play these college football games and you play these college football playoff games, you're going to know what it takes to get back into a game if you fall down early. You're going to know what you need to do if things are not going your way, if you're struggling offensively. They sometimes hit those lows, but they figure it out. So I think that's what I said. It's a blessing and a curse because you haven't had that dominant wire victory, but at the same time, you're going to know what it takes when you're in those moments and you need to come through. And they've come through again and again all season long.
Yep, and they obviously did it last year against Ohio State, a game that they weren't really in control the whole time. But all these times that you've had to do your thing in the fourth quarter, it helps you. And so I knew Missouri was going to be a challenge. They've had the ability to. I mean, I was at that Mizzou game when they upset Georgia at Stanford Stadium a few years ago, and they always play them tough. But I think with Georgia, there's so many different things they can do offensively, and then they just rely on their defense. They know they can get the stop and just rev up that intensity. And you saw it whether it was the interception by Stackhouse, rumbling down, just guys that we haven't seen make the big play. They step up and do it. I mean, every guy on the field's ready for their opportunity.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, once again, there's great, I think, adjustments. That's another point I wanted to point out too with Georgia. They could do a good job of adjusting. They had that early success Missouri did, but they could have did a good job of adjusting back, making it tougher, making the throws tougher, getting pressure on the quarterback. And I got to give a shout out. I think Carson Beck has just been consistent all year, right? Maybe he doesn't wow you like a Caleb Williams or a Michael Penix Jr. or a Drake May, but he just seems like he knows where to go with the football, Craig. He knows where the ball needs to be, where he needs to place it, and he just makes all the right reads. And I think, a good form of that, I'm not saying he's this player or he would get that to that level, but a good form of that is Joe Burrow, right? Obviously, he was a Heisman trophy winner. He was the number one overall pick. Led his team to a national title. But if you look at Burrow's game, he just knows where to go with the football, doesn't do too much, right? If the play's not there, he's not forcing it. I think that's a part of the game that stands out for me with Beck. And he's not going to get the love probably until the college football playoff and he start making moves, but I think he's been doing great. And I got to give a shout out. Brock Bowers went down. Ladd McConkey has stepped up week in, week out. Has been having great performances, had another great performance. And Oscar Delp from West Forsyth is doing it yet again. Had another big touchdown in the red zone. He just seems like that kind of that safety blanket kind of you can just use, and he's been stepping up big. And I think they've been having a great game. Deshaun Edwards didn't have his best running game, but they've been well.
Yeah, Georgia, I mean, we knew that they didn't have the most challenging schedule on paper, but they're in a good spot. They're continuing to get new guys involved. And, I mean, just what better opportunity? You're playing Missouri, you're letting the game come to you, and you have the confidence to just close out the victory. And the guys step up. So, I mean, they just have everything kind of tilted in their favor right now.
100%. Last thing, I want to point to Jimmy's point, but real quick, I want to ask. So, in your eyes, Jimmy, you say you think Beck's kind of saving Bobo. Do you think it's just a lack of creativity, or do you think it's just like it's taking him too long to adjust and figure out defenses? Like, obviously this is like one of his first, I believe. Obviously he's coached before, but being the play caller with his really great team, what do you think it is that is kind of lacking in those slow starts? You think it's just he's trying to figure out the defense? What would you say? It says I was in Jacksonville before a game. The play calling formation was not impressive. Okay. So Jimmy, yep, go ahead.
Well, I think you can definitely say that they aren't being like as aggressive as they potentially could. They aren't letting him air it out. They haven't done that once all season. So is that part of a strategy, or is it, as you said, just being a little too predictable and just relying on the fact that you have better athletes? And then that could be the key to the success. I don't know, but I'd agree that they haven't just gone out there, done trick plays, try to really get the defense on its heel and smack them around. They have not done that.
Yeah, I agree, and they're going to have to figure that out. A great point you made, Jimmy, especially when it comes to playing in those big games down the stretch, playing these great teams. They got another great team we'll talk about a little bit later, playing Ole Miss this weekend at 7 p.m. We'll talk about that in our predictions, but as you mentioned, Jimmy, I think, and Craig, you as well, they're going to have to be figured out because when you play the better teams, you're going to have to be able, like you said, to put them on their heels. And like sometimes them slow starts, obviously they know how to come back from it, but you don't want to put yourself in a 17-0 hole playing in Ohio State potentially, or a Michigan or a Texas or any of those teams. So I agree.
It just reminds me of like Buford this season. They go into the matchup, they know they're the better team. They just let the game come to them, and then they walk away with the victory. And it's like a team might show up though, and they're gonna be more aggressive, more creative, and come away with the big game-changing play. So that's something to be careful. But I don't think they have even had the mindset to go out there and try to win the game in the first half.
Great point by Craig. We're going to move to another fellow Georgia team, Georgia Tech, finally exercising those demons and finally being able to beat a team that they're supposed to beat in Virginia on the road. So currently third in the ACC, excuse me. I think the biggest thing, as I mentioned last week with Georgia Tech, they just can score in bunches. They had a 21-point second quarter. They did it again last week in that big-time primetime performance and beating UNC, 21-point quarter, 24-point fourth quarter. They do it all the time. And I think the standout, man, just Haynes King just continues to be consistent all year long, 208 yards passing a touchdown. Jamal Haynes stepped up in the running game, 119 yards and a touchdown. And King is just a good versatile dual threat. He once again was second leading rusher in that game. I think over 80-plus yards, rushing 2 touchdowns. He's just a weapon in the game. And we got to give a shout-out to the former Alexander receiver, Eric Singleton, who continues to perform and have a great freshman season, 8 catches, 50 yards, and a touchdown. Or 5 catches, 80 yards, and a touchdown. He just continues to be consistent all year long for Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets, and it looked like they got it going.
Yeah, really impressed with the offense. I gave Haynes a lot of praise last week. What people don't understand is, like, he is a real athlete. That guy runs a legit 4.5. He's big. He grew 2 inches before his senior season. He played in the SEC before he transferred over. He's the real deal, and all the weapons they have, offense is really coming to life, and I think we've got a heck of a matchup this week against Clemson.
We do, and we're going to talk about that matchup in a little bit. We're actually excited. I think I seen something that said Clemson is favored by 18, Craig, on the spread. So
I'm seeing it's 14.5 now, which
that must have went back then, because I think initial line was that. And actually, Jimmy, no, they do not play Florida State this season. They got Clemson, Syracuse, and then Georgia. And the Georgia game will be at home. That would be such an intriguing game between those two teams. See who comes out on top. But no, they do not play them. But they're third. And guess what, Craig? Only 1 game away from a bowl game. As I mentioned, I was high on them last year, and they come in, and they've been having a great season.
Yeah, that was the stat I couldn't believe when someone told me how long it's been since they made a bowl game. I didn't know things were that bad.
Yes, that bad. But Brent Key is doing a good job with that program, and I think they're going to make a bowl game this year. Only need 1 more win out of these next 2, and I think they'll get it. But let's talk about picks. How did we fare last week? I was 10-6. I took L's on Georgia State, LSU, Colorado, Notre Dame, TCU, and Miami. Those were my L's. But again, over 500, so I'll take that all day. But how'd you fare?
I missed one. I missed Notre Dame.
Really?
Yep.
That's the only one you missed?
That's the only one I missed. I told you I did one.
That is insane.
Yep.
Seriously.
Yes.
Wow.
No, I went back and looked at it.
Craig went stupid. I mean, that's...
No, actually, I missed 2. I missed the Michigan State one. You're right. I missed 2.
Okay. That's impeccable. I mean, that's hard to compete with. Only missed 2 picks, guys.
So, I got the Miami one right. I got the Oklahoma State one right. I got the Washington one right. I'm trying to think there's another. What was the other one we disagreed? Yeah, I got the Bama one right. Only 2.
We disagreed on a couple.
Got the Penn State right.
Yeah, I mean, you picked Oregon State too, right? Yeah, you didn't pick Colorado, no.
No, I missed 2. That's it.
Yeah, he balled. And I had a pretty decent week. He says Craig has a wish troll or something. I don't know. He did good. But you know what, Jimmy? I'm ready this week. Let me make sure I got my pen. And we go see this week. I got to be Craig. Yes, because we be forgetting, Jimmy. So we got to make sure we write it down. Let me grab my pen real quick.
I think the one I was most right about was the Miami one. Because I threw that one in. That was the last one. I was like, what the heck? NC State, Miami. And just that team is falling apart.
Literally, ever since they blew it to Tech.
They were looking really strong.
It's insane.
Yeah, complete spiral. And then same with USC. And they're in so much trouble. They got to play Oregon next.
Yeah, they're done.
I mean, that's bad. We were talking like, oh, should he stick it out? And I mean, that is a tough situation. And I know he was emotional after it, but you got to be crying because that defense, he gets 0 help. That's one of the worst defenses. Like, I know they're playing good teams, but I mean, they have not stopped anyone. What are you supposed to do when your defense gives up 50 points a game? It's unbelievable.
Well, what's your before we go to our picks and for this week? What's just your thoughts on that? There was a lot of controversy around that, and him crying, and some said, "Oh, he's not being manly enough." Just what's your thoughts on that? I mean, I think sometimes you lay it all on the field. I mean, you're going to get a little bit of emotion. I seen a Washington State player crying, or Washington player crying at the end.
I think it's really weird how many people seem to just like really dislike him. And then it's the way they tied in. They tied into last season when he painted FU or whatever on his fingernails. And so you're holding that against him, and now it's like, oh, that's why he's crying, because he's like likes to paint his fingernails. It's like, well, I think it's like two different things going on. I just think it's weird how many people like really seem to be rooting against the guy. That's a little bizarre.
It is.
So where's that coming from?
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. But yeah, it seems like a lot of people are not in his fan boot. I think some
want him to lose. Like, yeah, it's weird.
I think some of it could be the exposure. Like obviously, a lot of people said he's the odds-on favorite coming into the season to be the Heisman favorite. Kind of his takes on not wanting to go to a team that selects him in a draft. I think it's a little combination of everything.
Yeah,
I'm not saying it's warranted. I'm just saying I think for me, I think it's a little bit of all that, and also the painting your nails, the FU, and then losing in that game. I think it's just a combination of all that, in my opinion.
Yeah, I just think with this season, it's like we know what the deal is. I mean, the team, they've been in close games. Their defense isn't any good, and people are just rooting against the guy. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's tough, but we're gonna leave that there.
He's in a tough spot.
He is.
I've never seen that, like all of college football, turn on a guy like that, though.
Yeah,
it's
and didn't do really anything criminal.
No, it's with it. Yeah,
if you think about it, didn't really do anything criminal, but I guess it is what it is. Yeah, we'll leave that there. We'll keep it pushing to Week 10 predictions. I'm excited for this. I got to be Craig this week. Craig, in the season, is up on me 4-3 in all these picks. So I'm trying to one-up him, but he's up 4-3 now after I won last week. So let's see if I can catch him this week. Y'all take note of these. Michigan at Penn State. I picked the first 10. Craig picks the last 5. I think this is an intriguing matchup. I'm rolling with Penn State, man. I think this is the first time that Michigan is going to be tested this year. They got this one, and then Ohio State, their rival. I think they have the better team. Penn State does. I think Drew Aller has a big-time game. They're on the road. I like Penn State's chances. A lot of turmoil going on with Michigan. Their first road test of the season, first opponent they playing that are worthy enough. I got to go with Penn State.
I'm going with Michigan.
All right, Craig has Michigan. All right. So that's the first one. So you see, this week we're starting out. We're already disagreeing. So
I think people are going to want to see Penn State, but it's going to be a massive letdown, and Michigan will win on some last-minute thing.
All right. Let's see. All right, let's keep going. Alabama and Kentucky. Alabama had the big win against LSU. They're right at the top of the SEC West again last year for the divisions. Playing Kentucky, who's had an up-and-down kind of year, had some big wins, had some big L's. They say Kentucky's a better team than most think in the SEC East, but I think Bama's rolling right now, man. I'm going to roll with Bama.
I got Bama as well.
All right. So Craig is rolling with Bama. All right. Now, big-time game. Again, going into this matchup, Clemson was actually 18-point favorites. That has come down a little bit to 14. Big-time win with Dabo Swinney this year, probably their best win all year. They could have beat Florida State, but they came up a little bit short. He says, if I was anybody, I would be buying Clemson stock right now. Unfortunately, I'm not buying Clemson stock right now. I'm going with Georgia Tech. I'm high on Brent Key. I think this is the win they get, and I think Georgia Tech is going to submit themselves, their team to beat. They're third right now in the ACC, and I think they're going to show that, hey, you sleep on us if you want to. This could be potentially a team to watch for, especially when Georgia comes into their house in a couple of weeks. I'm rolling with Georgia Tech. They submit their status as a team to beat, and they submit their status as a bowl game they reached this year. I'm going with Tech.
I'm going with Tech also.
All right, so we both agree on that. Craig also has Georgia Tech. Only one pick we disagree on right now. Let's go to the next one. Miami at Florida State. Miami's been struggling. Florida State has looked good all year. Like I said, their test came kind of against Clemson so far this year, but I think Florida State's just at another level. I'm rolling with them at home. Miami's just struggling.
Same. Florida State big.
All right, we agree on that one. Another entertaining matchup, Craig. Utah's ranked. They're going on the road to play a very, very good Washington team who we've seen has kind of struggled a little bit defensively, but getting the stops when they need it most. But I think Michael Penix Jr. is this year's Heisman. In my opinion, my humble opinion, I think he keeps rolling. I think he continues to show why he's one of the best in the game right now.
Certainly, I got Washington.
All right. I can't, Jimmy, I can't pick Miami. Even though it's my favorite team, they're just not playing good right now. I can't do it, Jimmy. I can't do it. I cannot do that to myself. personally, Jimmy. So I can't pick Miami. I don't think they're going on the road and beating on Florida State. I'm sorry. They got too many weapons. Johnny Wilson, Keon Coleman, Jordan Travis having a good year. They're not beating Florida State. That defensive pass rush as well. No, I can't do it. All right, next big one. This is an entertaining one. Tennessee at Missouri. Who do you think comes out on top of that one? Ranked
Tennessee.
Oh, I think we disagree. I'm going with Missouri. I think Missouri rebounds after that letdown game against Georgia. They did give them a good fight, but I think they're going to come out on top. I'm rolling with them. All right. Craig had Tennessee, right?
Yep.
All right, cool. Let's keep going. Thanks for telling us, Jimmy. That was a Vegas game. I still think they will win. All right, Ole Miss. I think they're going to move up in the rankings tonight, probably up to number 8. They're going in a nightcap in UGA, big-time game, 7 p.m. kick. What you got?
So I'm going to go with Georgia. This one does scare me a little bit.
Whew. It's going to be a good game. I mean, in his tenure, has Lane Kiffin just had a signature win? I mean, he's beaten, I think, Alabama once, but has he had a signature win?
They're competitive every single week.
And their offense is good. It's just...
Yeah, I mean, I think they show up every single week. They have a great staff, playmakers, good offense, creative, but...
I'm going to roll with Ole Miss.
Okay.
I could be wrong. I like UGA, but... I need to see them finally get a signature win, but I'm rolling with them. All right, next one. We had to put this one on here. A big-time rivalry, Florida, LSU. LSU's coming off that loss. Jaden Daniels got a little bit banged up. Who you got in that one?
I got LSU.
We agree. I'm going with LSU. Florida's been struggling. Head-scratching loss to Arkansas at home. I agree with that. Another rivalry. We see this one usually in basketball. These two go at it, Duke, UNC, but their football programs have been pretty good this year. Even though UNC is not ranked or Duke, they've had some good seasons. Who you got in this one?
UNC.
I am in agreement. I think UNC wins that at home. I think Drake May continues to have a phenomenal season and a great game. I think they won that one as well. All right, last one for me, and then your picks, Craig. USC at Oregon.
I got Oregon.
Yeah, I'm rolling with Oregon as well. I think USC is just in trouble, and they suffered their 4th straight loss. They just can't stop anybody, and I think
that defense is non-existent.
Yeah, they can't stop anybody, and I think Oregon has enough to stop people. And you've seen it in some of the games. I think they held Watch to one of their lowest scoring outputs this year. I think they have a better defense than USC does. I'm rolling with Oregon as well. All right, my friend, I throw it to you. What games do you want to look at?
All right, let's go Maryland and Nebraska.
I'm going to roll with Maryland. Nebraska came off a loss to Michigan State. It was close, but I think Maryland just has a better team. I'm rolling with them.
All right, I got Nebraska.
All right, Craig is going to Nebraska. All right, putting that down in the notes. Okay.
All right, Virginia Tech, Boston College.
Boston College. I'm going to roll with Virginia Tech.
I got Boston College.
All right, that's another one we disagree on.
Okay, let's do 3 more. 1 sec. Auburn, Arkansas.
That's a good one. Arkansas, big win. Auburn's been struggling. I'm going to go with Auburn.
I got to go with Auburn, too. I thought about it.
Auburn. They should be able to win that.
Oh, man. How about West Virginia, Oklahoma?
I don't think West Virginia has enough to contend with Oklahoma. I think they're feeling real pissed off the last couple of weeks. Those losses, I think Oklahoma should be able to win that one.
I agree with that. And then let's do one more.
All right, Craig has Oklahoma.
Iowa State at BYU.
Iowa State versus BYU. Go Iowa State.
I got BYU.
All right, Craig has BYU. All right,
There's 15.
That's 15. That's our picks for this week. We got them written down this time, so we're going to be able to come back and know for certain, and we got them all circled. So a couple ones we disagreed on real quick before we move to our next segment, the top 6 teams. Craig has Michigan. I got Penn State. We both are in agreement on Bama and Georgia Tech. Florida State, Washington.
You got Mizzou. I got Tennessee.
Yep, he has Tennessee. I have Mizzou. I got Ole Miss. He has Georgia. We both agree on LSU. We both agree on UNC. We both agree on Oregon. I have Maryland. He has Nebraska. Craig has Boston College. I have Virginia Tech. We both in agreement on Auburn. We both in agreement on Oklahoma, and I got Iowa State and BYU. So that is this week's 10 predictions. Let's see who comes out on top. Craig is leading the season series right now 4-3. So let's see who comes out on top. All right, we're gonna move to our next segment. Our next topic in this last segment before we wrap for our third. Top 16s in college football. I'll start and throw it to you, Craig. I'm going to go with Georgia at 1, even though I know I have them losing this week. I'm still one of them at number 1 right now, just based on their resume and who they played. 2 for me is Florida State. 3, I go Ohio State. 4, Michigan. 5, Washington. 6, Alabama. 7, Texas. And then 8, Oregon.
Okay, I have Georgia 1. I got Michigan 2. And it is crazy with all that stuff going on. I still think Michigan's going to be there at the end. All right, 3 Ohio State, 4 FSU, 5 Washington, and I agree 6 Alabama. I mean, they've got more ranked wins despite the loss to Texas. I just think that they've earned their way, even though they started off pretty slow. I think Bama's back in a certain sense.
I agree. I think they're rolling and their defense is playing some good football right now. So I'm in agreement with that. And I think Caleb Downs, who's their freshman starter, had, I think, their most tackles. I think he had over 12 plus tackles in that game against LSU. So he's been balling, man. They've been a key piece in their defense this year.
So the most college-ready prospect in 247 history.
You did say that. So Craig standing on that.
That's what they said. That's how they described him. And I mean, I think they're right.
Yeah, I think so. I mean,
he was dressed out for the Sugar Bowl a month after they won state for Mill Creek. I mean, he's just been immediately ready to roll.
Yeah, and I talked to his dad.
From quite a good family too.
Yeah, and I talked to his dad, and he used to work out a couple times a day. I mean, even in high school, and he said he just had already a routine established, man, and obviously you see it, and that's why he's been able to ball. So shout out to that family and his dad, and obviously he got another son, Josh Downs, who's in the league right now. So they're doing their thing, man. They're doing their thing. All right, we're gonna move to our last segment to wrap up the show. We got to start with C.J. Stroud, Craig. I mean, spectacular passing record. A lot of people are not giving him the praise because it was against Tampa Bay. But still, as a rookie to do that, I mean, in a fast-paced game, adjusting to the game, 470 yards passing and 5 touchdowns. My stance is I think he's a superstar. I do, and I think he's one of the top 12, the top 15 quarterbacks in the league right now. I think before the season's over, he can move to top 7, top 8. And I told Craig this, and we talked about it last year when we did our college football playoff predictions when we first kind of started this show, and I had them beating Georgia. They didn't do that, but I think Craig left that game more impressed because of just his performance and how he played. And I just knew, like, from the start, he's a really good player, great leader, great person. And, I mean, he just shows them on the field, man, and the throws he was making in the national championship game, it just translates, man. And we talked about it so many times, Craig, when draft came around, and we was like, why is he being pegged as the 4th best quarterback when he really should be up here? And I was so happy, and Craig remembers this, I was so happy that he got drafted number 2 overall because I was like, besides Bryce Young, like there's not another quarterback I think in this draft that's better than him. No disrespect. It's just they're not on his level. The Anthony Richardsons, the Will Levises, no disrespect. He played for Kentucky. That's cool. He's played in the big games and come up big time and time again, and he's shown it, and he's shown it now in the NFL.
And it makes sense if you think about it. This past draft, the University of Georgia dominated it. All the defensive guys. Who was the only quarterback that had any success against those guys? It was C.J. Stroud. So if you're going to have all those defensive guys going early, getting immediate starting time for their NFL teams, who's the quarterback you want to take? It's the guy that pretty much led his team to a victory. Georgia got it late, but I mean, he did his thing against the best defense in the country and then comes into the NFL. Doesn't turn the ball over.
Nope.
Basically sets the record for most attempts without it. And now another record. I mean, he is just getting started for sure.
And guess what? He has the best TD interception ratio currently right now in NFL history of 14 touchdowns to 1 interception. That is insane. Yeah. That's where he's at right now.
And then just seeing the first year, now you're starting to build around him. And I think you're 100% right. Just a great pickup for him, and he's just doing his thing week in and week out.
Yep, and we actually got to play them this week, so we're going to find out
Ooh.
ourselves. The Bengals actually have Houston, so that's not going to be easy. They're going to have to bring they're gonna have to, come ready to play, man. Obviously, I believe in Louis Rumo, but he's gonna have to definitely disguise some stuff and bring some different pressures and make him feel uncomfortable, man. If you let him sit back there and cook, you see what happened in Tampa Bay. He will cook you. So we will see. But Craig, let's throw it to the Chiefs. Big win against the Dolphins in Germany. Again, Patrick Mahomes even came out on record and said he thinks it's the best, defense in the NFL. Not just in
Ooh.
Chiefs, not just in the past like 5-10 years for Chiefs, but just the best in the NFL. Just what's your thoughts on that in the win against the Dolphins?
I mean, they've been the strength of the team this season and definitely every week. The one thing they haven't done is produce the turnovers. They did that in a huge way. I thought the last turnover, that wasn't necessarily the Chiefs doing it. That was just a bad snap, and Tua mishandled it. But for the defense to come up, just make the play to build that lead before the half. The lateral, the youth in that secondary, I mean, it's pretty exciting to see defensively, and then to be able to get that win without putting up any points in the second half offensively. I think Mahomes might be right. And last year is like, okay, as long as the Chiefs have an okay defense, they'll be in it at the end. Well, now they have a great defense, and they just have to keep trying to figure things out offensively. I think they'll be fine, but certainly a big win against an AFC opponent and a tough loss for Miami.
100%. And I think for Miami, it's going to be talked about, all season long. They have not beat a team that's been capable or over 500 yet, right? They're 0-3. They lost to Philly, lost to the Chiefs, and also lost to the Bills. So that's going to be talked about all year until they can do it. And I think the thing, they got to figure out the running game again, right? They struggle in that game running the football. They got to figure that out. I thought their defense did good in the second half, limiting Kansas City, a very usually explosive offense. Pretty much kind of held them down, had them under wraps. But I think that it goes to Tua. If you look at that play, Cedric Wilson was wide open, and I don't know where he was throwing the football, but it came up short. He has to be better. He missed Jalen Waddle too on an in-breaking route, a dig, missed him on that. He has to be better when it's crunch time, and I think analysts brought up some good points this week. They just have not been in that spot to play elite teams right yet. And when it matters most, and in the playoffs, we've seen the Chiefs do it time in, time out, year in, year out, every single year. We've seen Buffalo do it. We've seen Cincinnati do it. We're still waiting on Baltimore to see if they can do it come postseason time. But they have not been able to do it yet. They obviously got a great explosive offense, but they got shut down for the most part. And they're going to have to figure that out. And they still got some tough teams on the docket. They still got to play Philly. They still got to play Buffalo again. Jets, I think when they get Rodgers back, they're going to be formidable. We see how good that defense is. So they're going to have to figure it out. That's my stance on that. But big win for the Chiefs. And they now hold a 2-game advantage on that division. So they're doing the thing.
Yep. And when you shut out Miami in the first half, the defense gets the game ball 100%. And then even at the end, if it wasn't a 21 lead at the half, if it was only 14-0, whole different conversation. The 3-score lead was huge for them. Credit to the defense balling out in the first half. And then even at the end, the Chiefs gave them back the ball. They were unable to pick up a first down, fielded a punt on the 1-yard line. They did a lot to let Miami get back in the game, but Miami just could not find a way to take advantage of it. So, as you said, once again, they can't beat the elite team, and you got to take advantage of opportunities when they're given to you.
100%. And then I got to get some love. We're going to go to the next game, Philly versus Dallas. Philly gets the big win. I got to get some love to Dak. I always come for him and say, he's pedestrian quarterback. He doesn't come up big when it matters most. He had a good game, man, and that's what I do. If I have a take and, I change the take based off of what I see or new evidence or new research. So I got to go with Dak Prescott in that one. I think he performed really great, 374 passing yards, multiple touchdowns. He was magnificent in that game, leading them in stride. Dallas Ferguson was a problem. He was killing that cover 2 shell that they ran all game. He was great. So I got to go with that. I think he's been phenomenal all season. Dak had a big-time game. CeeDee Lamb had the most receiving yards in that game. And the thing that stands out for me with Philly, that secondary is questionable. And they got to figure that out, right? You be able to figure that out. And the reason I say that, the week before they played a rival, guess who they played? The Commanders. Sam Howell threw for almost 400 yards. That's 2 weeks in a row you struggle. You struggle a little bit against the Dolphins as well. You got to get that figured out. So for Philly, you got to get that secondary figured out. You got to get more rush. They could heat it up later in the game, but you got to figure it out. And my game ball goes to Jalen Hurts. Got hit in the knee right in there. came in, still played well, put his team on his back, had a great performance. They struggled 4 3 and outs towards the end. Got to figure that part out. But overall, to come in there and to be injured and continue to put it all on the line for your team, Hurst is just an exemplary quarterback, and I think he's one of the best in the league.
Yes, he is. And I think the Eagles are the most physical team. And when your quarterback is doing things like that, just feeds into that identity the whole team shares. And then with that game, Phillies seems to be just so high above the rest of the division. I don't think that loss is necessarily going to prevent the Cowboys from winning it. I think Philly will end up a few games ahead of them. But as you said, that is going to be tough for the Cowboys potentially to have to go to Philly in the playoffs. They are obviously undefeated at home, and that is a very tough environment.
It is, and as you mentioned, I think they got a good lead, 2.5 lead now, and they got a division win against them. Phillies 3-0 in the division, as you mentioned, already swept Washington. Got some games against the lowly Giants, who just lost Daniel Jones with a torn ACL, a team that's struggling with a lot of injuries. So if you're Philly, you got to feel good, but you got to figure some things out if you want to go back and contend and win a Super Bowl. Philly also has a tough schedule. They still got to play you guys, still got to play Buffalo. Still got to play some really elite teams down the stretch. So we'll see how they come out on top, and they got to figure out the secondary. But let's move to the next one. Our biggest takeaway from the NFL from this week. I was going to do C.J. Stroud, but we already talked about him. I got to talk about the AFC North, Craig.
That was mine.
I mean, it's
insane.
It's the real deal. And I'm not going to take too much from you because I want to get your take on it as well. But, I mean, just to kind of belabor that point, I got to go with Baltimore, right? I'm going to let Craig to kind of talk about AFC North in general. Baltimore has beaten just elite teams that are expecting division leaders that are expecting big time playoff runs. They beat Detroit, beat them to a pulp, won that game big. They beat Seattle with no problem. I mean, last year these are games, big leads. They struggle to finish. They lose these games. They are beating teams to a pulp, and that defense looks like the real deal. One of the best ones in football. Got to put them up there with the Kansas City Chiefs. They look like the real deal. Lamar's playing well. They're not overly dependent on Lamar. Right, they're running the ball with Keaton Mitchell, who came from Elka. Also a great story right there. They run the ball with Gus Edwards. They run the ball with Justice Hill. They could just beat you in a multitude of ways. And Baltimore, that got to be my standout, just how great they're playing. They're in our division, unfortunately. We got to play them on Thursday night next week. They just like the real deal, man. And you're going to have to bring your hat, and you're going to have to be ready to play them because they're not playing no games.
Yeah, with that division, it's like who's the weakest link at this point? The fact that it could be considered like Pittsburgh or Cleveland, they're playing great too. It's like, yeah, that division just is completely loaded. You pointed out how difficult the Bengals schedule is, and it's only getting more difficult each week.
Yeah, I mean, after we play Houston, we got Baltimore Thursday night, Pittsburgh loosens up a little bit and gets tough again. We still got to play you guys, Pittsburgh again. So, I mean, as we both said, man, the AFC North is the real deal. The only weakness, as you said, I would say maybe Pittsburgh. Their offense has not been good this season. It hasn't. Their defense has been carrying them to a lot of good wins and things like that, but it just has to be better, in my opinion. So, but that's our biggest takeaway.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, a lot of people this last week, the win over the Bills, they say the Bengals, they feel like they're completely back.
Yeah, we're gonna find out. That's why I told Craig, because Craig asked me a great question last week. He was like, "If they beat Buffalo, do you think they're fully back?" And I said, "I'm gonna refrain from commenting on that one. I'm gonna wait a little bit because I want to see how they look." And I think the juggernaut right now and a team that's up there with the Chiefs is Baltimore. I want to see how they look on the road, hostile environment against a really great defense and a great team. That's when I'm gonna know if my team's fully back. Still, great win against Buffalo. You take a win, that was good. Both sides of the field. Burrow looks like he's back to normal. But Baltimore is going to be the real test to see if we are fully back. And I can't wait for that game next Thursday night on a short week in Baltimore. That's going to be the game. But let's move to the final topics to conclude the show. Best games in the NFL this weekend. I'm going to start, I think, San Fran, Jacksonville. San Fran's off that bye. They just added Chase Young. Might have to start calling the 49ers the 49er All-Stars because just the team they got him, Dre Greenlaw, Fred Warner, Tuafunga. Offensively, Debo's supposed to be back. Trent Williams should be back. Christian McCaffrey, Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle. I mean, that's an all-star team, guys. Let's be honest. But I want to see Jacksonville's won 5 straight, and they've beaten some really good teams. They're going to be at home. San Fran, you do not want to suffer your 4th consecutive loss, right? You're trying to get a number 1 seed and contend with Philly, right? That's competition right now. You do not want to go on a road lose to this team. Jacksonville, you want to keep stride up there in the AFC. You got the 3 seed right now. You want to be able to potentially contend for a 1 seed. You did already lose to Kansas City, but Jacksonville's been playing great. Their defense is good. I think this is going to be an all-time showdown.
Yeah, and it's a massive game for both teams, as you said. And Jacksonville, just imagine how big that would be if they can avoid the wild card round. I mean, for sure. They don't want to play in that because you're going to be squaring up potentially against the Bengals or Ravens.
Yeah.
Same situation with the 49ers. So they both come from different conferences, but I think it's big for that reason. You can have an opportunity to skip that wild card round, which is invaluable.
100%. And then my next one, Craig, I got to go Browns or Ravens, right?
Yep.
And why I go Browns or Ravens? They're 2-1 in the division. They got 2 more games back-to-back in the division, right? This is such a big game because think about it. Ravens can go to 8-2, already have a 3-1 division record with only 2 games left in the division, and then that puts the Browns behind at 5-4, and then they almost have a 2-game lead. Now, if the Browns can go in there and win on the road, right, that brings everybody back, right? The Browns are 6-3, the Ravens are 7-3. It brings everybody closer. But the Ravens go in and get this win, that's big for them because they move even a step closer ahead in the division and can kind of separate themselves. So I think that's a big game. Deshaun Watson played well in their win against Arizona. They're going to have to bring their hard hat. They got a really good defense, and they're going to have to be able to force Lamar to turnovers. One more quick stat, and I'll throw it to you, Craig. He has the most fumbles so far this year at 9 and lost fumbles. So if you can, and Myles Garrett is great at this. You've seen him play. He's great at drawing that ball loose and creating turnovers and things like that and fumbles. If he can have a good impact in that defensive line, you got like your chances with the Browns. But I think that's a good game.
Yeah, I think it's going to be an outstanding atmosphere too. Browns fans will show up for sure. Should be a good one. Those division games are always tough, and certainly if Cleveland can somehow pull off a win, that's going to shape the entire picture. I think other big game. Let's see. I was looking at I think Lions and Chargers is
That's on
interesting.
me.
Chargers had
Yes.
that big win last night. They're going to come off a short week, and yeah, I mean Lions have been doing their thing, but can the Chargers actually find themselves this season?
I agree with you. They started 2-4. They're 4-4 now, 2 consecutive wins, and it's just like in that. Looking at real quick at that matchup, Detroit is at the top of that NFC North. Vikings are getting hot, right? They're 5-4. They've turned it around as well. And I think for the Chargers is you want to keep pace with the Chiefs, right? You already have an L against them. They got a big lead. You cannot afford these kind of losses. So they're at home. They got to be able to win this game. The offense struggled. Herbert got to be a lot better. Keenan Allen had a good game past 10,000-yard mark, but they got to be better overall running the football. Kellen Moore has to be better calling plays and things like that. Their defense won that game. I mean, they had 3 forced fumbles, right? They did everything they needed to do to win that game. But as you mentioned, can they get back on track? Can you be 5-4? And as you mentioned, a heavily, tightly contested AFC that has 4 AFC North teams in it. You got to be able to keep pace. You do not want to take it out here.
Yeah, a win can literally help save their playoff hopes. And then I think another big one, Saints Vikings, same sort of deal in the NFC. Saints are leading the division right now. Got a great defense. And then the Vikings, looks like Josh Dobbs is going to be that guy.
He's going to be the guy. Great point out by Craig. And the Saints, you want to be able to kind of stay afloat. And I think analysts brought up a great point. If you can reach 10 wins, you feel pretty good about winning that division. So this is a good big win for them. If they can win, you get another one up on the NFC, and you be able to kind of, start creating a little bit of separation. So big time game.
Yep. And then bye teams this week: Chiefs, Rams, Dolphins, and Eagles. So we talked about those teams, not the Rams, but Dolphins, Eagles, Chiefs. Their storyline just being off this week. Let's shape this picture.
And last note.
Broncos, Bills.
I was just about to talk about that. I was about to say last note, we're going to conclude the show. That's such a big game because the Broncos are starting to turn it around, right? They had the big win in the game. Nobody took them to win against the Chiefs, but as I mentioned, them divisional games, man, you just never know. But if you're the Bills, right, everyone's writing you off right now. How do you respond, right? You're supposed to win this division, right? You're supposed to be contending with the Chiefs and the Ravens and the Bengals in Jacksonville, right? You're at home. You're in your environment, but they've had slow starts, Craig, and you cannot have a slow start in this game. They got to come out hot, and they got to start getting together and stacking wins together for the Bills. Your schedule doesn't get any easier. This is a game you got to have. Again, they got to play y'all. They got to play the Philly. They got to play the Jets again. They still got to play the Dolphins. So they have a tough schedule. So these are the games you want to win. Let's see how Josh Allen and crew comes out and see if they can come on top against Denver. But I thought you, Craig, what's your last point?
Yeah, let's look at the Bills right now. So yeah, Broncos, Jets, Eagles, Chiefs, Cowboys, Chargers, Patriots, Dolphins. They still have
Forgot
a chance.
Cowboys.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
still have a chance, but there are some tough games. This is almost like a must-win for them
Yes, I agree
on
with
Monday.
Craig. It's a must win, and you got to keep pace with the Dolphins in that division. They got a tough schedule too, but you got to be able to beat Denver at home on a Monday night. You cannot lose that game. But that's all I got for you guys. Appreciate you tuning in. I know this one went a little bit longer, hour and 20, but we appreciate you tuning in. That's all we got. Thanks as always, Jimmy, being our top supporter. Thank you, Coach Bryce, though, running backs coach from North Atlanta. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in. That's all we got for this week. And last thing, Jimmy, no way in hell that's happening. Lamar coming to the Falcons. They just signed him to a massive 5-year deal. They're not trading him. Come on, man. Do you not see the season they're having? That's hopes and wishes and caviar dreams, man. But that's all we got. We're gonna conclude the show. Y'all have a good week. We out.